There are places in the world that time has forgotten, not because they no longer exist, but because no one has lived long enough to tell what truly happened there. At the edge of the northern continent lies a land that has been sealed for tens of thousands of years, known by a terrifying name, the Valley of Bones. No one knows exactly when this place first appeared, but those who dared to venture inside all reported the same strange thing. The mountains here do not look like mountains. From a distance they resemble gigantic swords, driven straight into the earth, massive battle axes split in half, or ancient blades buried deep within the stone, as if the entire valley were a graveyard left behind after a colossal war between gods. For thousands of years, countless relic hunters have entered this valley in search of lost artifacts from ancient times, but most of them never came back. Until one day, three strangers walked into that valley, a warrior wielding devastating power, a sorceress who commands the fires of hell, and a mysterious figure who seems to know far too many secrets about this land. They did not come for treasure. They came because of a legend, that deep within the sealed valley lies the ruins of an entity that surpasses every limit of humankind. But they did not know. The thing sleeping inside those ruins had never truly died. The rumors about the Valley of Bones are not just stories meant to frighten travelers. Among ancient relic hunters, this place is considered one of the most dangerous regions on the entire continent. Not because of monsters, but because of secrets far too ancient, buried beneath the stone and soil. It is said that tens of thousands of years ago this land was once a battlefield for beings whose power defied imagination. After that war, the entire valley was sealed by a colossal formation that stretched for thousands of miles, one that even to this day has never weakened. But what caught Tianluo's attention was not the legend of the ancient war. It was the traces of a newly discovered ruin near the center of the valley. According to the ancient maps he had collected beneath one of the strange mountains in the valley, might lie the remains of a palace that had turned to stone. If that were true, it could very well have once been the residence of an immensely powerful entity from the ancient era. So Tianluo sought out the only two people capable of entering this deadly place with him. Han Jing, a warrior famous for strength powerful enough to shatter entire mountains, and Lai Yu, a fire mage capable of burning an entire battlefield to ashes. Three people, three different purposes. But as they ventured deeper into the Valley of Bones, they began to realize something terrifying. The mountains surrounding them might not be mountains at all. The deeper Tianluo, Han Jing, and Li Yu moved into the Valley of Bones, the heavier the atmosphere around them became. Strange mountains rose everywhere, but upon closer inspection, they didn't look like natural formations. Their surfaces were sharp and angular like metal that had been worn down by countless ages. Han Jing stopped in front of a massive cliff, his eyes narrowing. This thing looks more like a blade than a mountain. Tianluo didn't answer right away. He silently studied the surrounding terrain before finally pointing toward the center of the valley. There a colossal mountain towered over everything else, its shape so unnatural that it sent a chill down one's spine. From a distance it looked like an ancient palace buried deep within stone. "We're in the right place," Tianluo said quietly. Without hesitation, Han Jing pulled the massive battle blade from his back. A terrifying surge of energy gathered around the weapon before he swung it straight at the mountain wall before them. A thunderous explosion echoed through the valley. The thick stone cracked open, revealing a pitch-black entrance descending into the heart of the mountain. From within a wave of cold decaying air poured out carrying the scent of time sealed away for tens of thousands of years. Lai Yu frowned. Something about this place feels wrong. Han Jing turned to Tianluo, his gaze sharp with suspicion. Before stepping inside, he raised his hand and formed a seal, placing a binding mark on Tianluo's body. "Just to make sure you don't try anything." Tianluo simply smiled. "Relax. I'm just as curious to see what's inside." The three of them descended the ancient stone staircase, each step taking them deeper into the heart of the mountain. The light from outside quickly vanished, leaving only the small flame in Lai Yu's hand to illuminate the dark corridor. The air inside was suffocatingly heavy, as if this place had been sealed for tens of thousands of years. After walking for some time, Tianluo suddenly stopped. In front of them were two corpses kneeling on the ground. Their bodies had shriveled but had not completely decomposed. The strange thing was that both of them were in the exact same position, hands forming a seal before their chests, heads bowed low, as if performing some kind of ritual. On their foreheads, shoulders, and chests were large holes, clear signs of fatal wounds. Lai Yu shuddered slightly. Did they kill themselves? Tianluo knelt down and examined the stone floor beneath them. Dried blood had stained the rock, a dark brown forming intricate lines that resembled a ritual formation. "Not suicide," Tianluo said quietly. "This is an ancient sacrificial ritual." Han Jing frowned. "A sacrifice for what?" Tianluo slowly raised his head and looked into the darkness ahead. "A prayer. These people used their own lives to summon some kind of power." The three continued deeper inside. But when they stepped into the grand hall ahead, the sight before them caused all three to freeze in place. Within the dim shadows, Countless other corpses were also kneeling around the hall. The scene inside the grand hall left the three of them frozen in place. Under the flickering flame in Liu's hand, they saw 6 more corpses kneeling in a circle at the center of the hall. Just like the 2 bodies outside, these figures had their hands forming seals and their heads bowed low as if completing the final step of their ritual. But the most terrifying part was that every one of them had once been incredibly powerful cultivators. Han Jing stepped closer and examined the ashes beneath their feet. A faint blue glow flickered within the dust, something that only appeared when the bones of high-level warriors had been eroded by time. These people were at least as strong as we are, he said grimly. Liu swallowed nervously. If even a group of warriors like this had died here, then whatever they had faced must have been something far more terrifying. Tianluo hadn't even had time to respond. Drip. A tiny sound echoed through the silent hall. All 3 of them turned their heads at the same time. A drop of green liquid had just fallen onto the stone floor. Drip. Another drop followed. Tianluo slowly lifted his head and looked toward the ceiling of the hall. In the dim glow of the flame, they saw a massive cocoon hanging above them. Its surface was slowly melting, thick, viscous fluid dripping down onto the stone below. The air around them began to tremble. And suddenly, spiritual energy from across the entire valley began to surge wildly into the hall, as if something was waking up. In just a few seconds, the grand hall began to shake violently. Streams of spiritual energy from across the entire Valley of Bones poured frantically into the cocoon hanging from the ceiling, causing its outer shell to crack apart piece by piece. Crack, crack. A long fracture spread across the surface of the cocoon. Liu stepped back, her voice trembling. That thing. It's about to come out. No one had time to react. Boom. The cocoon suddenly exploded. But what burst out was not a giant creature like they had expected. Instead, thousands of pitch-black insects erupted outward like a living storm. Their shells were as hard as metal, and their razor-like wings vibrated with a piercing shriek. In the blink of an eye, the entire hall was swallowed by a sea of insects. Fall back, Han Jing roared. He immediately raised his hand and formed an energy barrier around the 3 of them. The swarm slammed into the barrier like living arrows, crashing against it again and again, until the protective field trembled violently. Within seconds, Han Jing's face turned pale. The barrier. It's draining too fast. Liu stared beyond the shield, where countless insects crawled, flew, and clawed at the glowing wall of energy. Their screeching filled the hall, sending chills down her spine. Fear rose in her chest. If the barrier broke, the 3 of them would be devoured in seconds. And even more terrifying, the cocoon above them was not completely empty yet. The swarm of insects continued their frenzied assault on Han Jing's barrier. The layer of energy trembled violently as if it could shatter at any moment. Sweat ran down his forehead as his breathing grew heavier. I can't hold this much longer, Han Jing growled. Liu clenched her teeth and finally unleashed the full extent of her power. Her hands formed a seal and dark crimson flames erupted wildly around her body. Move. A surge of hellfire blasted outward beyond the barrier. A sea of flames rolled across the hall, devouring thousands of the insects. The sharp hiss of burning filled the chamber as the stench of scorched chitin spread through the air. The pressure on the barrier immediately eased. But just as they thought the situation was stabilizing, a deep sound echoed from above. Buzzes. The air vibrated violently. All 3 of them looked up. The remaining shell of the massive cocoon hanging from the ceiling began to convulse violently. The last fragments of its surface peeled away, revealing an enormous dark shape inside. Boom. A gigantic creature dropped into the center of the hall. It was a colossal armored insect, its metallic shell gleaming coldly in the dim light. From its head extended several blade-like protrusions as sharp as swords. Han Jing didn't hesitate. He swung his battle blade straight at the creature. At the same moment, Liu unleashed another torrent of blazing fire. 2 high-level attacks struck the monster directly. When the smoke and flames cleared, the creature had not moved an inch. Not a single wound marked its body. Tianluo stared at it, his pupils suddenly shrinking. Using a secret observation technique, he had seen something impossible. That's not right, he murmured. That thing isn't a living creature. Tianluo's words made Han Jing and Liu freeze for a moment. If it's not a living creature, then what is it? Han Jing roared. Tianluo kept staring at the monster in front of them. Beneath its metallic armor, he could sense a strange fluctuation, not the aura of life but the energy of an ancient artifact. At that moment, the giant insect suddenly began to tremble violently. The armor plating covering its body started splitting apart piece by piece like fragments of metal rearranging themselves. Its sharp legs retracted, its body elongated, and the blade-like structures on its head twisted and merged into an entirely different form. In just a few seconds, the enormous creature transformed into a pitch-black ancient saber floating in midair. But this was no ordinary weapon. The blade vibrated with a low hum, almost like breathing. An ancient killing aura spread throughout the hall, tearing through the surrounding space like invisible blades. This is a living mystical weapon, Tianluo whispered. Suddenly, whoosh, the ancient saber shot straight toward Han Jing at a terrifying speed. A brutal battle instantly erupted inside the ancient hall, as the two warriors were forced to confront a weapon that had developed its own life. But at that moment Tian Luo realized something even more terrifying. This ancient palace might only be one fragment of a massive ancient seal, and the ancient saber before them was likely only the first guardian. If you want to know what is truly sealed inside the Valley of Bones, comment 1, and I'll tell the next part of the story.